It was a calm summer evening, July 16, 1999. John F. Kennedy Jr. was flying his small plane up the East Coast. He had taken off from Essex County Airport in New Jersey. His wife, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, and her sister Lauren were with him. They were headed to Martha's Vineyard for a family wedding. By all accounts, it should have been a short, easy flight, but they never arrived. As the sun went down, so did their plane, somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean. No mayday call, no distress signal, just silence. People didn't panic at first. Delays happen, plans change. But by the next morning, John's absence was impossible to ignore. He was John F. Kennedy Jr., American royalty, son of a president, the kind of person people notice when he disappears. A massive search began. Boats, helicopters, the Coast Guard, even the Navy joined in. For hours, then days, they searched the cold, dark water. Finally, the wreckage was found, about 8 miles from Martha's Vineyard, 120 feet beneath the surface. The bodies of John, Carolyn, and Lauren were still strapped inside the plane. There were no survivors. The official report from the National Transportation Safety Board came months later. It said John had gotten disoriented in the dark. He was flying at night over open water with little visibility. No horizon, no landmarks, just black sky and black sea. They said he likely suffered spatial disorientation, a condition that tricks the brain into thinking the plane is level when it's actually spiraling. Pilots call it a graveyard spiral. It's almost impossible to recognize until it's too late. And here's the key detail. JFK Jr. wasn't certified to fly using instruments only. He was a licensed pilot, yes, but not trained for low visibility conditions. He was supposed to fly when he could see the horizon. That night, there wasn't one. The official cause of death was listed as pilot error. To most people, that's the end of the story, but not everyone believed it. Why didn't John call for help? Why did experienced pilots say the crash didn't make sense? Why did the Navy, not the Coast Guard, recover the wreck so quickly, so quietly? And why, for a family so familiar with tragedy, did it happen again? The Kennedys have always been different. They've been adored, admired, envied, and, some say, targeted. Over the decades, their name has become more than just a symbol of power. It's become a magnet for death. Plane crashes, car accidents, assassinations. From Joe Jr. to JFK to RFK, the story has always ended the same. Early, sudden, tragic. And now, JFK Jr., the last great hope of the Kennedy name, gone in the blink of an eye. The media reported it as a terrible accident, an inexperienced pilot, bad weather, and a bad decision. But to others, it felt different. Too clean, too final, too perfect. Some people whispered about politics, some whispered about sabotage, and others, the ones who still believe in curses, said what many were afraid to say out loud. This wasn't just bad luck. This was the curse, coming back for more. There were no screams, no black box recording, only a splash in the night, and 3 people swallowed by the sea. The question isn't just what brought the plane down, it's what was following him before it ever left the ground. John F. Kennedy Jr. wasn't just anyone. He was the one, the golden son of America's golden family. Born into the spotlight, raised in a world of power, loss, and expectation. His father was the 35th President of the United States. His uncle, a senator, a presidential candidate. His name, a legacy. But in some corners of America, people don't call the Kennedys a dynasty. They call them doomed. There's a story people whisper, one that's followed the family for decades. They call it the Kennedy curse. It sounds like a myth, a dramatic headline, something tabloids throw around after another tragedy hits the family. But when you look closer, when you line up the deaths, the accidents, the losses, it stops feeling like coincidence. It starts to feel like something's hunting them. It begins not with John Jr., but with his uncle, Joseph Kennedy Jr. He was the firstborn son, a Navy pilot in World War II. Handsome, fearless, the one his father wanted to become president. In 1944, on a secret bombing mission, Joe Jr.'s plane exploded mid-air. No body was recovered, just fire and ocean. He was 29. The torch passed to his younger brother, John F. Kennedy. He made it to the White House, but not for long. In 1963, he was shot in the head during a motorcade in Dallas. A president murdered in broad daylight. The world stopped. The country wept. And then came Robert F. Kennedy, the next brother. Senator, civil rights advocate. A man who could have been president, maybe even should have. In 1968, during his campaign, he was gunned down in Los Angeles. Just like his brother. Just like fate wanted it. By then, people started to murmur. How many assassinations could one family endure? But it didn't stop there. Because the curse doesn't care about age or innocence. In 1984, Robert's son, David Kennedy, died of a drug overdose in a hotel room. He was just 28. His life unraveling in the shadow of a last name too heavy to carry. In 1997, another son, Michael Kennedy, died in a skiing accident. He hit a tree while playing football on skis. No helmet. Gone instantly. And then there's the story of Ted Kennedy, the youngest brother. He didn't die young, but the curse touched him too. In 1969, after a late-night party, his car went off a bridge on Chappaquiddick Island. He escaped. His passenger, Mary Jo Kopechny, did not. She drowned, trapped in the car. Ted didn't report it for hours. His career never recovered. The curse doesn't care if you're powerful. It doesn't care if you're careful. It follows you, and it waits. Some blame the family's ambition, that they reached too high, wanted too much. Others say it's karma, that the wealth and power came at a price no one was willing to admit. But then, there are the darker whispers. People talk about Rosemary Kennedy, JFK Jr.'s aunt. She was different, slow, unpredictable. A burden, the family thought. So, at just 23 years old, her father had her lobotomized, one of the most brutal medical procedures ever performed. She was never the same. She lived in silence for the rest of her life, hidden away. Some say that was when it began, that the moment she was cut off from the world, something unholy attached itself to the bloodline. A punishment, a price, a curse. Some claim the curse is tied to Joe Kennedy Sr., the family patriarch, a ruthless businessman who made backroom deals, played dirty politics, and may have even gotten rich off bootlegging during Prohibition. A man who demanded greatness from his sons and watched them die one by one. The legend says he made a deal with fate or with something worse to build an empire. And like every deal with the devil, it came with fine print. For every gain in power, a loss in blood. The pattern is hard to ignore. 1 plane crash, tragedy. 2, a coincidence. 3, a question. Why do so many Kennedys die in aircraft? Joe Jr. in World War II. Kathleen Kennedy in 1948. Her plane went down in France. JFK Jr. in 1999. It's almost as if the sky itself rejects them. What's strange is how the deaths happen just when the future looks brightest. JFK, the youngest elected president, shot. RFK, on the cusp of winning the nomination, shot. JFK Jr., possibly entering politics, crashed. Every time a Kennedy rises, something pulls them back down. The media won't say curse, it's too irrational, too mystical. But ask anyone off camera, anyone who's followed this family's story, and they'll tell you there's something wrong with the Kennedys, something cold, something ancient, and it's still not done with them. So when John F. Kennedy Jr. stepped into that plane on July 16, 1999, people didn't just see a man flying into the night. They saw history repeating itself. The same pattern, the same shadow. Maybe it was just an accident, a mistake in the dark. But maybe it was the curse, catching its breath, getting ready, and striking again. So what really brought JFK Jr. down? They say it was an accident. But you're about to hear why that official story doesn't sit right with so many people. In fact, there are several theories about what really happened to JFK Jr. that night. And some of them are political, some are suspicious, and one of them, it might just be the most shocking and unbelievable thing you've ever heard about the Kennedys. So stay with us until the end. Because the last theory, if it's true, it means everything you thought you knew about that plane crash is a lie. The official version of events is simple. JFK Jr. lost control of his aircraft due to inexperience and bad weather. But from the moment the news broke, something didn't feel right. People asked the same question over and over. How does a Kennedy just vanish? John wasn't reckless. He was a cautious pilot. He checked in with weather updates. And while he wasn't licensed for full instrument-only flying, he'd made similar trips before, solo, at night, over water. Why would this night be any different? Let's start with the first theory, one that gets whispered in political backrooms, never on the news. One theory is he was eliminated by the summer of 1999. JFK Jr. was more than just a magazine editor and a celebrity. He was building influence, fast. He ran George, a glossy magazine that blurred the line between politics and pop culture. And rumor had it, he was preparing to enter the political arena himself. The office everyone talked about, the US Senate seat in New York. Now here's the twist. Another name had just entered that race. A powerful name, Hillary Clinton. At the time, Clinton was preparing to move to New York and announce her candidacy. But insiders believed JFK Jr. would have crushed her in a primary. He had the name, the charm, the public's love. And then, right before he could make a move, he's gone. Some claim he was taken out by people who couldn't afford the risk. That his plane wasn't brought down by bad weather, but by design. Supporters of this theory point to weird inconsistencies. The FAA took hours to announce the plane was missing. The Coast Guard was not first to the scene. The Navy was, and they recovered the wreckage extremely fast. No black box, no final communication, and no real effort by the family to demand further investigation. Just like that, the next Kennedy in line for power disappeared, and no one asked too many questions. The sabotage theory. This one is darker. It doesn't pin the blame on politics, but on something even harder to fight, the deep state. According to this theory, JFK Jr. had gotten too close to secrets. He was reportedly looking into his father's assassination, digging into files, talking to old intelligence contacts, trying to connect dots others had given up on. Some believe he was ready to go public with something, a story, a name, a confession, something buried beneath layers of history and lies. And then, his plane drops out of the sky. People who support this theory say the crash was engineered, an electronic interference, a planted device, maybe even remote manipulation of the aircraft. Far-fetched? Maybe. But remember, his cousin, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, said in an interview that John had grown paranoid in his final year. He felt he was being followed, watched, listened to. And days before the crash, he reportedly told a friend, "I feel like something's coming." The cover-up theory. This theory doesn't claim murder, but it does claim something is being hidden. It suggests that the crash was accidental, but something about it was too embarrassing, too dangerous, or too disruptive to reveal. Maybe the plane didn't go down exactly where the government says it did. Maybe the timeline is wrong. Maybe there was another passenger on board who's never been identified. Or maybe they found something in that wreckage they couldn't explain. The Navy's recovery was fast, too fast by many standards. They recovered bodies, the aircraft, and classified the operation almost immediately. Why the secrecy? Even the autopsy details are murky. The press was fed carefully selected information. No photos, no official log of debris details. Just a neat, clean package tied off with pilot error. That's not how Kennedy tragedies usually go. People ask, what's really in the classified Navy records from that night? And why haven't we seen them? He faked his own death theory. Yes, this one sounds insane, but it has a life of its own, especially in recent years. There's a movement, mostly online, that claims JFK Jr. never died. that the plane crash was staged, a decoy, a distraction, that John and Carolyn went underground. Some believe they did it to escape fame. Others believe John was planning to expose powerful people, and faking his death was the only way to stay alive. According to believers, John is still alive, hidden, protected, and waiting for the right time to return. Some even claim they've seen him in public, always in disguise, always watching. Now, is this likely number? But in a world where nothing seems real anymore, people cling to the idea that maybe, just maybe, the Prince of Camelot didn't die. He simply went dark. The deal with the devil theory. They say his death was a tragedy, that it was weather or error or fate. But what if none of that is true? What if something darker pulled John F. Kennedy Jr. from the sky? Not bad luck, not politics, but a curse, real, alive, and old as sin. You've heard of the Kennedy curse. It's the phrase reporters whisper when they run out of explanations, but they never ask what it really is, where it came from, or who or what started it, until now. This theory doesn't point fingers at the Clintons or the deep state. It doesn't need sabotage or secret agents. Because in this version, the monster behind the crash wasn't in the government, it was in the bloodline. And it started with Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., the patriarch, the builder, the one who wanted the White House. Not for himself, but for his sons. Joe Kennedy was powerful, ruthless. He made his fortune during Prohibition when other men went broke. Rumors swirled that he worked with gangsters, fixed elections, paid off priests, and made quiet deals in dark rooms. But there's another rumor, one you won't find in history books. They say Joe Kennedy wanted greatness so badly he made a deal, not with men, but with the devil. Some versions call it a pact, others call it a trade, but the heart of it is always the same. Give me power and I'll pay the price with souls later. And oh, did he get what he wanted. His son, John F. Kennedy, became president. Another son, Robert, was on his way to the same. The family had beauty, wealth, charisma, and control. But the price? The price came due. One by one, the Kennedys started dying. Not just dying, vanishing, shattering, burning, drowning. The kinds of deaths that feel unnatural, almost chosen. Joe Jr. exploded in midair. Kathleen's plane was ripped apart in the sky. JFK shot in the head on live TV. RFK murdered in a crowded hotel kitchen. It didn't stop. David overdosed. Michael skied into a tree. Mary Kennedy hanged herself. And then, John Jr. He wasn't supposed to be the next to go. He was careful, measured, grounded. He had survived the spotlight his whole life. But on July 16th, 1999, something pulled him out of the clouds, and it didn't leave a trace. No mechanical failure, no storm, no warning. Just a plane vanishing into blackness. What if it wasn't random? What if the curse finally caught up? Let's go back to that night. Imagine this. John climbs into the cockpit. He's confident, focused. The weather looks fine on the map, but as the sun disappears, the sky changes. The haze rolls in, thicker than expected. No horizon. No landmarks, just shadows. The ocean below is silent, waiting. His instruments start to twitch. Altitude, pitch, heading, nothing feels right. The plane banks, but he doesn't feel it. The wings tilt, the nose dips, the water rises. And in the last moments, maybe he sees it. Something outside the window. A shape, a shadow, a figure watching from the clouds. No face, no voice, just presence. Maybe it's the same thing Joe Kennedy saw when he made the deal. Maybe it's the same thing that stood at JFK's side in Dallas. Maybe it's been there all along, waiting, feeding, collecting. Because this theory says, the curse isn't just an idea. It's a thing, an entity, a debt collector, and it doesn't stop. It's not bad luck, it's payment. The Kennedy line was built on blood and ambition, and every few years it demands more. And this time, it wanted John. Some say the curse is tied to the land, the old Irish roots of the family. That long ago in the hills of Wexford County, the Kennedys were warned. Do not rise too high. Do not forget the old ways. The sky is not yours. And yet they rose. Presidents, senators, icons. They reached for heaven and something reached back. Now think of John's plane. No distress call, no screams, just silence. The cockpit recorder, missing. The details of the crash, sealed. The family, quiet. The ocean swallowed him whole, as if it had been waiting. And maybe it had. Maybe John Jr. never had a chance. Not because of inexperience, but because the deal made before he was born had already decided his end. Some people say the Kennedy curse is superstition, a tragic coincidence, a myth we tell ourselves when reality gets too hard. But look at the list. Look at the timeline. Look at the sky that night. Do you really believe it's all just chance? Or was the final flight of JFK Jr. not a failure at all, but the final act of a story started generations ago? Maybe the curse isn't done. Maybe it never ends. Maybe it just waits, in the clouds, in the quiet, in the name. And the next time a Kennedy rises, it will rise too. The ocean is quiet now. The wreckage is long gone. The headlines faded. But the questions never left. Why did that plane fall from the sky? Was it weather? A mistake? A hand on the controls that didn't belong? Or was it something older, something invisible, that had already chosen him the day he was born? You can believe the official story. It's simple. It makes sense. A young pilot flew into the dark, lost his way, and never came back. Or you can believe what history keeps whispering, that John F. Kennedy Jr. didn't just crash. He was claimed by something his father once bargained with, by something his grandfather summoned in the name of power, by something no one in that family could ever escape. The Kennedy curse isn't just a myth, it's a pattern, a rhythm, and it always ends the same way, with silence, sorrow, and another name carved into stone. But maybe the most chilling part is this: the curse isn't done. It still breathes, still waits, still watches every time one of them speaks, or smiles, or steps into the spotlight. Maybe it's not just about death, maybe it's about balance. For every Kennedy who rises, one must fall. That's the rule. And the curse, it never forgets. So what do you believe? Was JFK Jr. a victim of his own ambition? A casualty of night and fog? Or was he another name on a list written in blood, long before takeoff? And if he was, who's next? Let us know your theory in the comments below. Because in stories like this, the answers don't always come from the news. They come from people who notice what others ignore. People like you. Subscribe to Cryptoria for more truths, more legends, more ghosts hiding in the pages of history. Because some stories don't stay buried, and some names you can't escape no matter how high you fly.